So we need to talk about Trump land for a second. I understand that Donald Trump did not really hide much of his intentions on the campaign trail. I will say the Project 2025 denials, and now all those people are getting appointed, and we're even hearing about getting some positions possibly, and et cetera, et cetera. So I'm not like surprised that Trump is an authoritarian. I think some people are. And look, I understand that you want to believe that Trump has a certain respect and reverence for the American institutions that we have preserved for eons and eons past from before our lives. I mean, we have the longest surviving constitution in the world. Did you guys know that? The United States is the longest surviving constitution in the world. And so when somebody so quickly disregards that living history piece, oh my gosh, that moth just flew right past the camera. That was like an action shot. That was an action shot. Just throw in the instant replay. Okay, where were we? So none of this is particularly surprising to me, right? He said on the campaign trail that, I mean, no, not even on the campaign trail. This was right after he lost. He was removed from office, of course, because, he's no longer president. And he starts calling for the Constitution to be terminated. To be terminated. So this was somebody who, I mean, we knew he didn't have a reference for the Constitution like 4 years ago, or you could have just looked at his term. Or all the unconstitutional actions that are being, administered by the current head of state of the most powerful country on the planet. For example, the gutting of institutions without contacting Congress. If a institution is created by Congress, they're the ones who alone possess the power to dismantle it, because those are the people's representatives. Okay, our democracy is not one person. I know conservatives believe in small government, but we don't believe in government so small that it cannot be a check on itself. That's the whole reason for the checks and balances system. Is probably part of the reason why Trump has spent so much time targeting the judges, as the legislative branch has gone asleep at the wheel, leaving one check, one bumper, keeping us on the tracks as we're trying to, at least stay on the board. So I'm not particularly surprised. You know who was surprised? It seemed like the Supreme Court justices were surprised. And I don't know if you guys actually listen to Supreme Court cases, and you can actually listen to them being talked to about the issues that they're, hearing, whether it's, Trump versus Casa as it is in this instance, or it is any other number of cases. Now, of course, not all of those things are public. Only some of them are public. Some of the deliberation, of course, is private. But I wanted to check out some of the public deliberation from Trump's recent suits. And I have two clips that I wanted to share with you. And first, let me read you the quote. And you can then listen to the audio yourself to judge if this is a fair assessment. Because I did a double take. Trump's Solicitor General, D. John Sawyer, tells Justice Amy Coney Barrett that Trump generally tries to respect federal court decisions, but he has the right to disregard legal opinion he personally disagrees with. Coney Barrett seems to be in disbelief. Mind you, Coney Barrett is a Supreme Court justice appointed by Donald Trump. He was the one, I mean, not appointed, but nominated. He had to go, of course, through the nomination process. But she was his pick. Coney Barrett asked Sawyer if he really believed Trump's argument as a long-standing policy of past presidents. Sawyer says yes, he thinks it is. That seemed to really catch Coney Barrett off guard. Let's listen.
You resisted Justice Kagan when she asked you whether the government would obey within the Second Circuit a precedent. I'm distinguishing between opinions and judgments here. Did I understand you correctly to tell Justice Kagan that the government wanted to reserve its right to maybe not follow a Second Circuit precedent, say, in New York, because you might disagree with the opinion?
Our general practice is to respect those precedents. But there are circumstances when it is not a categorical practice. It is, and that is not
This
just a new policy.
administration's practice or the longstanding practice of the federal government? And I'm not talking about in the Fourth Circuit, are you going to respect a Second Circuit? I'm talking about within the Second Circuit. And can you say, is that this administration's practice or a longstanding one?
As I understand it, longstanding policy of the Department of Justice. Yes, that we generally, as it was phrased to me, generally respect circuit precedent, but not necessarily in every case. And some examples might be a situation where we're litigating to try and get that circuit precedent overruled and so forth.
Okay, but then you litigate it. I mean, he basically said that the president can pick and choose which court cases he thinks that they got done wrong on, whether because he personally disagrees or he has a different legal opinion, as Trump, expert legal scholar should be, the one chopping and hatching at the baseline of our democracy. But why not just, okay, I rule that I'm going to sue the Democrats trying to shut down their party for being a terrorist organization, oh, I didn't like the court decision. I know this is an extreme example, but the point is that if you allow any president, starting from any point, whether it's he does this on something small, like, renaming something like Trump Heights or Trump whatever, or Trump this or Trump that, or it's something more significant that it has to do with the civil rights of Americans, or it has to do with, the institutions created by Congress, and he doesn't have the right to just gut them without Congress. If it has to do with something like this, what basis do you have to defend yourself and defend your institutions and defend your democracy if the president can just say, oh, well, I guess the judge guardrail doesn't matter if it annoys me. If it annoys me enough and I disagree, you wouldn't sue somebody if you didn't believe in your lawsuit. I mean, so why make a lawsuit if you don't believe in it? Of course you're going to disagree. But do you guys see a lot of court cases where at the end of, like, I'm sorry, dumb this down, Judge Judy at the end, the other person's like, you know what? When they do the post interviews, I think I was convinced that I actually suck. And, I don't deserve to be compensated for my dog being run over. I agree. I lost a court case. So, that's no, of course they all personally disagree. You think if they had the power to get that $500 anyway, they wouldn't do that? Weird. In my talk about Amy Coney Barrett's reaction, I've now put a dog's life at $500 for anybody who's, curious about what that number is. I gave it to you. Let's go for another Trump stalwart pick. We're going from Amy Coney Barrett. And I'm going with the Trump picks because I just want to get across the fact that this is not like liberal judge after liberal judge, as Trump is trying to portray. These are the people that he thought were legal experts of such a caliber that they should be some of the most powerful legal authorities in the country till they die, right? That's your job as the Supreme Court. You're hearing cases that have gone through such a system and have not been able to be sufficiently decided up to that point till it gets up to you. And then you are the ultimate arbiter of the Constitution, the thing Trump said he wanted to terminate. Let's listen to Brett Kavanaugh try to make sense of this. In a wild moment at the Supreme Court, Trump Solicitor General John Sire admits to Justice Brett Kavanaugh that Trump has no idea how to actually enforce his birthright citizenship order. Wild moment. Wild moment. So listen to Brett Kavanaugh really here. Listen to the tone in his voice, because, these are not guys that flip out. This isn't a YouTube React channel where he just throws the R slur at this guy once he says something like this. But the order from Trump was that we're going to revoke birthrights. That we're just, it's no longer, it's no longer a thing, even though it's explicitly in the Constitution.
On the day after it goes into effect, this is just a very practical question, how this is going to work. What do hospitals do with a newborn? What do states do with a newborn?
I don't think they do anything different. What the executive order says in Section 2 is that federal officials do not accept documents that have the wrong designation of citizenship from people who are subject to the executive order.
How are they going to know that?
The states can continue to, the federal officials will have to figure that out.
How?
So you could imagine a number of ways that the federal officials could.
Such as?
such as they could require a showing of, documentation showing legal presence in the country. For a temporary visitor, for example, they could see whether they're on a B1 visa, which would exclude kind of the birthright citizenship in that context.
For all the newborns? Is that how that's going to work?
Again, we don't know.
They just tried to get rid of birthright citizenship, change the Constitution. I mean, not even change the Constitution. That's how you would actually get rid of birthright citizenship. If they wanted to say, I want to get rid of birthright citizenship, let's get the congressional majority to do that. They know they can't do that. They know Trump's too much of a divisive figure to ever have a 2/3 majority in the House and the Senate, and the Democrats are too weak and floundering in order to get the 2/3 majority, in order to, make any changes either. So they're both in the situation where they haven't been able to get a 2/3 majority. He knows he's not going to be able to get one. So he wants to get rid of the CFPB. He wants to get rid of these institutions that were created by Congress. He wants to take action knowing he'll never get to a point where he can actually just pass this with a big majority that he's built, or through the so-called art of the deal, reaching across the aisle, which Trump would not know how to do if his life depended on it. But this is just showing the depravity of this. We're talking about ignoring the U.S., which is gone, birthright citizenship. We're taking that on. We're throwing that out of the Constitution. We're saying, I'm not even throwing it out of the Constitution. We're just saying, it doesn't really matter. And when asked, like, okay, you're going to change the foundational documents of the longest living constitution in the world, what happens to, all the children that are born in the United States? They all need certain documents provided at the birth, or do they need, I don't know. I'm sure you could think of something. Does he believe in anything? I know he's a U.S. Solicitor General. He works for Trump. This is his job. But you could think of a number of ways. That's as far as we've gotten in the planning process. I've got, what this reminds me of? I've got concepts of a plan. That philosophy is still riding high over the Trump organization. Look, I'm not going to make this a long, sprawling segment. I don't feel the need to. All I wanted to show you guys is just some of the audio coming from, again, Trump's own Supreme Court picks. These are the people that he pushed through Congress. You guys remember how vicious that Brett Kavanaugh fight was? All the media scrutiny, all of the attention, how the hearings were, all the drama around it, all the accusations, really gross accusations, alleging some pretty gross behavior, that put this man on the potential political chopping block before he got through. Now, this man that Trump pushed through despite all of that, sounds like he can barely even be in the room with this man when he says stuff like, oh, well, I'm sure various ways, such as, listen to the tone in that.
Ways that the federal officials could.
Such as?
Such as. Anyway, if you're a Trump fanatic, I'm sure that this specific opinion by a Supreme Court appointed by Trump, and that you liked probably just because Donald Trump appointed them. And again, I didn't appoint them, nominate them. But Brett Kavanaugh was put through the ringer. He was put through the ringer. He got through on the other side, and he doesn't sound like he can even be in the room with the man. Trump does not care about the foundational legal principles of this country that have survived since its inception. That's not to say that like every single thing that the United States has created, or any document that Washington or Benjamin Franklin or any of the signatories of the Declaration of Independence, whatever, that any of this, like all of this, is some perfect, all holy document that must always be revered. But that's also why you have a process to change it. It's just he doesn't have the support to go through that official process, because it ended up being like 200 or 300,000 votes that separated victory and defeat in the key swing states. This is a man who got a plurality of the vote, not a majority of the vote, a plurality of the vote across the United States. Here's a question. Do you think the Trump administration, if they push Brett Kavanaugh enough, can bring out party Brett again? Can bring out that man who likes to drink? I think maybe they can. And I think they might be on the road to. He doesn't care about basic democratic principles. He doesn't care about our basic legal principles. He doesn't care about the documents that we hold in high esteem. Donald Trump cares about Donald Trump. There's his philosophy. Do you just need to show up with a beer bong? Or if a beer bong is not available, a shiwi? What is a shiwi? Never heard of it.